Okay, so let's get on with this thing. Oh, by the way, Disney team, I just uploaded the PowerPoint slides from the Moodle shell. I presume that's the one you want to use, or did you by any chance send me a PowerPoint file today that's more recent?
I did. I sent you one today.
You
And I
did?
uploaded one. Yes, correct.
Okay, so, and it's not the one that's in the Moodle shell now?
Yes, I submitted it as well. So whatever's in the Moodle shell should be it. Correct.
Okay, so that's the one I've
Yes,
got ready,
correct.
ready
I
to
did
go.
both. I sent it to you and then I uploaded it as well.
Very good. Thank you very much for being so conscientious about that. Well, let me get it up here for you and you guys can get started. I'm sorry to hold you up. All right, Disney team, let her rip. Disney team.
Hi, everyone. My name is Billy Crawford. I'm accompanied by Michael Mardo and Blake Talon, and we will be presenting the Walt Disney Company.
Okay. Oh, you want me to flip this?
Next.
Oh, yeah. Oh, should we just tell you the slides? Those are just some of our contents if you need to go back for the assignment.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be talking about the history of Disney. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So Disney has a 98-year history. We're going to start by talking about in 1923 when they were founded. Another important date in 1947, the Disney Music Company was founded. In 1971, Walt Disney opens in Florida. In 2005, Hong Kong Disneyland opens. Bob Iger in 2005 became the CEO. Disney acquired a bunch of different companies like Pixar in 2006, in 2009 Marvel, in 2012 Lucasfilms, and then in 2014 Maker Studios. Also in 2016 Disneyland opens in Shanghai. Disney acquired 21st Century Fox, and then Bob Chapek replaces Robert Iger as CEO in 2020, right before the pandemic.
Okay. Now, some of these are turning points, aren't they?
Yes.
For instance, the pictures with sound. One of the first thing that, or Disney was the first one to put that in, and I think it was with Steamboat Willie, right?
Correct. Yes.
And
in 1928.
Okay, and we've got some other unique items. I don't know whether you're going to talk about them later or not, but
yes, we will.
Okay.
So this is the first motion picture, like Dr. Roney said, Steamboat Willie in 1928, and then the most recent ones Disney's put out is Black Widow and Luca. You go next slide, please.
Okay.
Another important creation of Disney is their media networks, which was founded in 2004. This is now a subgroup of Disney. When they acquired ABC, they also acquired ESPN, which has led them to a lot of media. This is also headquartered in Burbank, California, and has led them to have many different cable channels, productions, TV networks, and distribution networks.
Right.
Okay, the background. Next slide. As Billy mentioned, their headquarters is in Burbank, California. Next slide.
So to reiterate what Mardo was saying, Disney is known for their acquisitions. One of their biggest ones being ABC Incorporated for $19 billion in 1996. And in the early 2000s to the 2010s, they've made a lot of acquisitions such as Pixar, which was a major rival, Marvel, Lucasfilm, which creates Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and 21st Century Fox most recently in 2019 for $71.6 billion.
It's perhaps noteworthy that Disney acquired a television, not just a station, but an entire network, ABC.
Yes,
So
sir.
these guys have been very aggressive in their acquisition. In their acquisitions.
Okay, so the current CEO is Bob Chapek. He became the 7th CEO following Bob Iger in February of 2020. An important thing to note about Disney, so their prior two CEOs, Bob Chapek and Bob Iger, both were within Disney when they built up their role in Disney. So Bob Iger worked for ABC, and he worked his way up to becoming the CEO of Disney. And then also with Bob Chapek, he was the marketing director, president of consumer products, and most recently the chairman of Parks and Resorts before he became CEO.
Thank you for that. When I was looking over the notes after our meeting yesterday, I said, boy, I hope he talks about Chapek's qualifications.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to know that both the CEOs they recently had were in the company prior to this. It wasn't an outside source.
Yeah, and he was, if he ran the parks and resorts, that's such a big part of Disney that would be a major qualification. And then president of consumer products, that may not be the same as media, but media are aimed at consumers, and so the guy has got some understanding of the company before he steps in to manage everything, and I think that's a pretty good sign. That's an encouraging sign if you're a shareholder.
Okay, and this is just the leadership. I just wanted to show here that Bob Iger is now, he was the CEO. He resigned in 2020, February of 2020, right before the pandemic, and now he's the executive chairman. So he didn't leave Disney. He's just on the board now. And then these are just some of the leadership in Disney. You can go to the next slide, and then after that.
Oh, and keep going?
Yeah, you can keep going.
Okay.
Okay, so the mission statement for Disney. I just highlighted this because I thought it was really important. Their main goal is to entertain, inform, and inspire people around the globe. And they're doing this to become a reflecting their iconic brands, creating creative minds, and innovating technology that makes ours the world premiere in entertainment company.
Now onto the Abel's model. Next slide, please.
Oh, you want more? Okay.
Yes, sir. One of the major 3 factors of Abel's model is customer groups. So the customer groups that Disney adheres to are families, children of younger generations, vacationers, and retail purchasers. And an example of this is collectors for novelty and antique items. Some of the unmet customer needs. Some may be age-appropriate content, affordable entertainment, convenient park access, and worldwide access to parks and resorts. And one thing is that we will talk about the parks and resorts that they do reach 4 continents, but they do not have any locations in the Middle East, Africa, or South America.
Good point. I think I mentioned when we met that I thought that the item of age-appropriate content today, what we're going through as a culture, it just seems to me that's significant. Is there anything you can add to this insofar as explanation?
One thing to add to this is possibly that there's not enough mature content, that a lot of it has to be child friendly. So for strictly adults to watch, Disney doesn't offer as many options as it could to compete with other companies.
Yeah. Well, of course, Disney's always been, before it got into such a broad scope of products, it's always offered, content, and whether it's movies or whatever, even the entertainment parks for kids. And today, media is full of stuff that isn't really the best for younger kids. And so if you say Disney is meeting the need for age-appropriate content, somehow that seems to me to be responsive to a need of society. I would have liked to see you develop that just a little bit. Okay.
The key competencies. One major thing that Disney has is original trademarks and characters, which have been around for tens of years, such as the picture that you can see below. Also, they have advanced technologies. They succeed in retail merchandising. They also have very good studio entertainment that competes in the industry. They revolutionized animations and invented Technicolor. And they also have various sources of entertainment, such as parks and TV shows and movies and studio entertainment.
Okay.
Some of the takeaways from Abel's model and its mission statement. Disney has demonstrated an accurate execution of its mission statement. Disney also reaches 140 countries across the world. And they've also created a streaming app, Disney Plus, that we will go to talk about in future slides. And Disney has also created recognizable brands and technologies that are commonly purchased.
Okay.
Now onto the environmental analysis.
I think this slide is really important because for a global outlook of Disney, like countries around the world, like can relate to Disney's films and stuff. Because as you can see, it's over 50 films here shown in the picture to the left that they're filmed. They're like the movies take places in those parts of the world. So as you can see on the map here, they're all over each continent. And there are 4 continents, like Billy mentioned, where there are physical locations. They are United States. Well, I meant three continents. I'm sorry. They're United States, Europe, and Asia. Disney has the largest presence in the United States. Also, gaining more interest from Asia and Europe. This is due to Disney Plus, as we'll mention later on why. It's helping spread so much traction globally.
Okay, I just made that edit. Let me say.
I appreciate it.
I just, I'm hitting the save button. Unfortunately, sometimes when they're already in the uploaded stage, even though we can edit them while we're looking at it, when we go back and retrieve it again, the edit doesn't stay. So everybody who's watching, 3 continents. All right.
This slide here is to kind of further emphasize where Disney's revenue comes from. And from the bar graph, you can see on the right that most of it derives from the United States and Canada. And towards 2018, 2019, and 2020, they added South America in with that. And you can see that the closest revenue source is Europe. And next slide.
So you mentioned adding the South America, but you guys are moving real fast, and that's impressive. But I think everybody who's watching, that probably went by half of the class. The green bar indicates what?
Both North and South America. So that is a combination of Canada, the United States, and South America.
Okay.
And on the next slide, it shows a percentage of what that revenue is.
Okay.
So the USA and Canada make up 72% of annual revenue. And within their last years, they've added South America to that to make up 76% of their global revenue. Europe makes up 12, and Asia Pacific makes up the remaining 11.
So if I add 76 to 12, I got 84. And if I add the 11, I got 95. And that's just about everything.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Here we have a revenue of, this is just to emphasize what their parks are doing. If you can see out of the multicolored blue bars, I wish I could point right now, but in about each quarter, the parks are taking in about 12 billion. Sorry, I'm pointing, sorry about that. But this graph is to show that parks and their resorts make up a lot of their annual revenue.
For sure, but is there a pattern? The parks is the light, this color here.
Yeah, so it remains usually between 8 and 12 billion per quarter. So it's that bigger chunk.
What I was wondering is when we get over here, my understanding is that the coronavirus really subdued attendance in the park. this, I can't quite make it out, but this looks like it's still a pretty strong part of the bar chart. Is that right or not?
I actually would believe that
Parks and
the first quarter of 2020 is the second to last bar. So that's right after that is when COVID started to hit.
right.
So
And
it's even higher. So when COVID hit, it's actually still higher than the fourth quarter of 2019.
yeah, that's surprising. I had understood that the park attendants really got hurt when COVID broke.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, for theme parks, there are 12 parks worldwide for Disney, 9 Disney resorts around the world. 6 are at those 12 parks, so that makes sense. 6 parks have 9 of the resorts. And then the Magic Kingdom is the largest. That's in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
So these are Disney's parks globally. As you can see here from the map to the left, it's California, Florida, Paris, Tokyo, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. And then to the right, you can see all their castles. Those are the 6 parks castles.
Oh, here's a comparison on the parks, resorts, and cruise line industry, just to give you a better observation of where Walt Disney Company stands on this. So as you can see at the top, there's Cedar Fair and Six Flags, which are 2 competitors in the theme park. And they don't, and then also there is Carnival, Royal Caribbean. Those are 2 cruise lines that compete with Walt Disney's cruise lines. And it's clear that Walt Disney blows all of them out of the water. Next slide.
Yeah, big difference. The bar on the bottom is much larger than any of those others.
And the second highest bar is Walt Disney's Parks and Resorts, which are just the resorts.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so cinema and movie theaters. Movie theaters were a critical source of revenue prior to March of 2020 when the pandemic hit. United States is primary source of revenue. Theaters in India could be seen as a massive potential market in the coming years, and I think that's important to note. Billy will talk about that later on, but that India could be a huge market for Disney. Disney is still facing the dilemma of the COVID-19 and its worldwide restrictions on movie theaters. And many theaters are going out of business, and multiple leaders in the cinema industry are seeking buyers. And if you go to the next slide, I'll be talking about Disney Plus, which basically you could say saved Disney's cinema. Disney Plus launched in November 12th of 2019. So that's like only 5 months prior to the pandemic. Disney Plus is now in over 35 countries, and they're seeking to expand to Hong Kong, Taiwan, and South Korea in the next couple months. It's key to note that Disney Plus costs $8 a month and $80 a year in the US. It's $1 cheaper than its competitors, Netflix and Amazon Prime. And unlike their competitors, they only have one package. So like for Netflix, the base price is $1 more, but if you want add-ons and stuff, it goes up to $15. And same with Amazon Prime, whereas just Disney Plus has that flat $8 cost.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything about the bar charts?
Oh, yeah, well, we can talk about the bar charts. So ESPN Plus and Hulu are assets to Disney. They own both of them. So also Disney's thinking of merging with Hulu as well. So as you can see, if you could combine those charts, how much closer they could be at competing with Netflix. But I think it is important to note that Disney owns those three of the 4 on the chart. And just to see if you were to combine Hulu and Disney Plus, how much closer in competition they will be to Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. So this bar chart was done, was this chart done before Disney acquired Hulu?
Yes, correct. It was.
ESPN.
Yeah, they've had ESPN for a long time, but yes, it is before Hulu.
Yeah.
They acquired them in 2018, I believe.
Okay, so if we were to look at a bar chart today, we would see the combination of those 3, and it would be a lot closer to Netflix, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
They just made the app too, which Netflix has been in circulation for around 10 years.
Yeah, okay.
Here, and this is what I want to show you too with how big the pandemic helped Disney Plus and how how awesome it was that they had that launch in 2019, right before the pandemic. As you can see, Q1, there's 26 million. And then throughout the pandemic, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. By the end of 2020, they went from 26 million to 73 million subscribers worldwide. And now they're all the way at, they're at 118 right now, and they're expecting to stay around that subscriber number for the end of this year.
Yeah.
But this just shows how important Disney's growth, this Disney Plus's growth for Disney will be globally, because I mean, you have 118 million subscribers worldwide. So the presence in different countries, especially on the previous slide where they said Taiwan and Shanghai, and that, I think it'd be really important for Disney's market globally.
Okay. Yeah, that's real growth. Exchange rates.
Yeah, so next we're going to get into the exchange rates and what that can mean for Disney. So this is looking at the Chinese yuan to the US dollar. And if we look along the graph, it started out very high, but once in 2008, it sunk really low. It began to weaken again in 2014 to 2020. However, it has recently strengthened, as you can see at the last highlighted part of the chart in 2020, and that could be potentially to China's strong handling of the pandemic. So it's important to note for Disney is, so when the yuan is weaker, less Chinese tourists will be willing to spend on Disney products and services in the United States, and vice versa.
Right.
Yeah, so this is Hong Kong. It's very similar. It's important to note here, though, as you can see on the chart, it's just all over the place, really. So there's a large fluctuation all the way from 2003 to 2012. And this cycle kind of continues up until 2017. And you can see a really sharp rise, but then it comes down just as fast back in 2020. And you can see how low it is in 2020. And so since the Hong Kong dollar has strengthened recently, more Chinese tourists will be willing to spend the money on Disney products and services when they enter the US. And so here we're looking at the Japanese yen to the dollar. So we see a large decline in 2008, and that could be large in part due to the recession. And then it starts to go back on the rise from 2012 to 2016, but then it has since slowly declined since 2017. And this is just important to note that the yen is strengthening on the dollar as of late, and the same be said about the Chinese yuan. So the Japanese tourists will be more likely to spend in the Americas.
Are slightly better able, again, for the audience, for everybody. I'm sure there are some people here, even though we've talked about it many times, that still don't quite relate to exchange rates and purchasing power. So if you look at the y-axis, it says how many Japanese yen can a dollar buy? And so back here in 2016, a dollar could buy 125 yen. And today it can buy maybe 108 yen. So the dollar cannot buy as many yen. The dollar is therefore weaker and the yen is stronger, right? So the Japanese folks can come to California and buy dollars with their yen and have more fun. Okay.
Yeah, and here's the last one. This one's a little different because it's actually reversed.
Right.
And this is looking at the US dollar to the euro. And as you can see, it was extremely high in 2008. And then it peaked there. And then it begins to pretty much up and down, but it's eventually comes down all the way to 2020. However, it has been rising slightly as of late. And so the big takeaway from this is that the US dollar has been mostly weakening to the euro in the past decade. However, we are starting to see a slight rise in 2020.
Okay.
So here's the big takeaways. I've already mentioned these, but the Chinese yuan, the Hong Kong dollar, and the yen are all strengthening against the US dollar currently. So this could force more Chinese tourists to be willing to spend on Disney in the US, like you mentioned. And the same could also be said about the euro, as that's also strengthening. So really the big point here is that the US dollar seems to be losing strength on many different currencies around the globe. And this could actually be beneficial to Disney in terms of international tourists.
Very good. That's a good conclusion. Thanks, Blake.
Industry analysis.
Okay.
So some of Disney's main competitors are in 4 different industries, which are parks and experience, media networks, direct to consumer, and studio entertainment. So some of their biggest competitors in parks and experience are Universal, Six Flags Incorporated, and Merlin Entertainment, which is a British theme park provider. The media networks, some of the competitors are Time Warner, Comcast, and CBS Corporation. Direct to consumer are Amazon, Netflix, who runs this industry as of right now, and HBO Max. Studio entertainment, some of their competitors are DreamWorks, Warner Brothers, Paramount Studios, and Universal Pictures, who also has parks.
What's your takeaway here? I mean,
That they're
you've shown us this list, and 9 other people, or at least 7 other people, the folks who are not on your team, they're sitting there, taking their drinks and, trying to prop their eyelids open. What do you want them to take out of it? I think there's a hell of a meaning here.
A major takeaway of this is that Disney has their feet in a lot of different industries, which has increased their amount of competitors that they have.
Yeah, they're up against monstrous competition, and not just in one industry. I mean, supposing, I don't know what sport you play, but I imagine all you guys are sports, but just pretend it's football. And so we put you on one side of the line, just you all by yourself, and you got 11 people on the other side of the line. What are your chances, right? You take a look at what's on the screen. You got Disney, one company, taking on this multitude of competitors, and yet they seem to do pretty well. But when you consider just how much Disney has to encounter in the way of competition, it's awe-inspiring. I mean, I've seen a lot of industry myself as I've traveled around the world and helped companies plan, but I can tell you, I don't think I could do much to help Disney. How do these people figure out competitive strategies to take on all these customers and all these industries? It's really mind-boggling.
Now we'll talk about the Porter's 5 force model.
Okay. Oh,
Yes,
you
sir.
want a slide?
Yeah,
All right.
So for one of their industries that they are invested in is parks and experience. And as discussed before, some of their biggest rivals are Six Flags, Universal, and Merlin Entertainment. As per the threats of new entrants, it's very low because there's a large threshold to enter this industry, and it takes a lot of money and capital. Threat of substitution. The other threats of substitution are resorts, theme parks, the ride industry, and also just like vacations such as Royal Caribbean. Buyer power is pretty low because of the limited quantity of suppliers, and the supplier power is very limited because of the quantity. It's also high risk, and there are high switching costs.
Why is supplier power high risk?
Well, Disney creates their own parks, but it would be very high risk to switch who provides the capital for your parks.
The capital.
To create your rides.
Okay, to the folks who that one leaves me kind of puzzled. Not sure exactly what high risk has to do with suppliers to the parks, unless you can, straighten me out on that. What can any of you guys tell me why supplier power for the parks is a high risk?
That was my explanation for it.
Okay. All right.
Now to another industry that they're invested in is media networks, and some of their rivals are Time Warner, Comcast, and CBS Corporation. The threat of new entrants is pretty low because it's very hard to start up a new media network. Threat of substitution are video games, social media accounts, and just television, just cable television. The buyer power is high because of the rate of substitutions, and supplier power is low due to high financial costs and threshold of entry into this industry.
Okay.
Direct to consumers, some of their rivals that we all know are Netflix, HBO Max, and Amazon Prime, who have all been on the rise as of recently. Threat of new entrants, it is a growing industry, and COVID-19 gave opportunity to many new competitors, and more platforms are being created. New competitors are companies such as Amazon Prime and NBC. Threat of substitution, just like media networks, is video games and cable television. The buyer power is very high due to all the various substitutes that I've recently described. And the supplier power is switching costs are high for Disney specifically.
So what does this mean with the supplier power and
With
the switching cost?
Because of acquiring Hulu and ESPN, it's they lost $2 billion in 2020 because of their acquiring of Hulu. So now they're in the talks of trying to combine those together so that there are no losses and they can compete with them.
Yeah, but that doesn't get me anywhere for supplier power. If we're talking about a media company, a broadcasting company, is this Disney Plus that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so who are the suppliers to Disney Plus? Among
Yes.
other things, I imagine it's the personalities, the actors.
Yes, sir.
And they come at a high price, right?
Yes, sir.
It could also be the large broadcasting networks that Disney Plus goes across to reach the consumer. So the switching costs, for Disney, I suppose that it's difficult for Disney to switch from one supplier to another, but maybe a little bit more specifics here as to who the suppliers are would be helpful. There are a couple of things that we've mentioned. By the way, I think your concept here, the way you're delivering this, is really good. I like the concept of your slides and so forth, but there are a couple of places we've talked about, such as supplier power here. I think it was supplier power on the last slide too. But if you could be a little more specific, maybe put a couple illustrations in there and then reload this PowerPoint in the Moodle shell. That would help me because it would help the class. And it's stuff like this that I like to ask questions about to be sure that people have actually looked at what you present. But if they look at switching costs high for Disney specifically, I'm not sure what the hell they get out of this after they look at it, But if you give them something specific, then I think we get the idea. Okay.
Can we go? This is the last slide. I think we accidentally skipped down to the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. I really didn't mean anything by that. I hit the wrong button. Is this where we were?
No, sir. It's a little higher.
Yeah.
A little bit higher.
Boy, I'll say I'm really sorry.
Oh, it's all good. A little bit higher.
Yeah.
A couple more slides. There, studio entertainment.
Sure.
Slide 42.
Media networks. This was it. Is this where we were, or is this where we were going?
This is where we were going.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Studio entertainment, some of their biggest rivals are DreamWorks, Warner Brothers, Paramount Studios, and Universal Pictures. The threat of new entrants, studios focusing on US market, India and China also possess a large stake in the industry that is untapped for Disney. Threat of substitution, as discussed before, is Warner Brothers, Paramount, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Universal, and independent films like cult classics and other film creators. But all of these companies create films as well that compete with all of Disney's. Buyer power is very high because of it's a very competitive industry and that there's so many substitutes. And supplier power, there's a limited quantity of suppliers, and there are low switching costs.
And some of the things we mentioned about the last slide, just
Yeah.
where Disney gets the essential ingredients for this service. Conclusions.
This is to conclude all the Porter's 5 forces. Direct-to-consumer industry contains many competitors, but has a high profit potential, and Disney is a very new entrant into this, just starting right before the COVID-19 pandemic. Studio and parks and experiences present low threat from other competitors as well.
Okay. Why do we do Porter's 5 forces?
To see the profit potential for the industry.
What is it?
The profit potential for the industry.
Okay, well, let's see, direct to consumer industry contains many competitors, but has a high profit potential. But I don't see anything about the other businesses, studio and parks, low threat from competitors, but I don't know what you're saying about the profit potential, let alone the other business segments. Maybe if you get a chance to complete this slide. Now, you know what we did in the other presentations, how they wrapped up their 5 forces. You guys remember? They made a table, right? And they put the 5 forces across the top of the table, and they put the countries down the side. But in your case, I think you would put these 4 business groups and identify the 5 forces strength from 1 to 5 and compare the profit potential of these industries.
Dr. Roney, if you go, I don't know why Billy didn't jump in. If you go, we have the scorecards for those industries.
Oh, you're going to show it to us.
Yeah,
We do have all the
Okay.
critical success factors.
Okay. We had this conversation.
yes. That's why I knew
I
you
screwed it up yesterday too. Okay. So here we are with the critical, but see, that's critical success factors report card, and that's not the 5 forces. Right? We're looking here for the 5 forces that is an assessment of the profit potential of these, excuse me, of these industries. When we get here to critical success factors, yes, that's also very important. But this talks about the relative strength of the competitors. And here we're talking about the attractiveness of the industries, right? Okay, so we might benefit if we add some kind of a scorecard like this for the industries that Disney is in. Okay, off we go. What do you want to do? Are we talking now about critical success factors? Is that still Billy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So here's a critical success factor report card for each of the industries. First up, we have the media networks. And this is just to show you how far ahead Disney is in competing against other competitors. AT&T has a close second with 4.45. And then following and last on this graph is Comcast at 2.45.
Okay.
Additionally, on the, can you go back? Yeah. Additionally, we have the parks and experiences. So ahead by a lot, we have Disney at 4.4. And then in last, we have Merlin, which is primarily in the United Kingdom at 3.6.
You got Universal as a close second to Disney.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Primarily because of their location in Florida, too.
Ah, okay.
Critical success factors for media networks include creative writing and original characters and trademarks, their marketing skills, their entertainment, all the sources of entertainment, and audience attraction. Parks and Experience goes by capacity. They have a much larger capacity than all of their competitors. Various attractions and motives for admission, such as using their trademark characters in the attractions. Also, they have well-known safety and security of all their parks.
Good slide.
Here are the following two critical success factor scorecards for direct-to-consumer, which they are very new in this industry, scoring a 4.4 with their closest competitor being Netflix at 4.05. And in last is Warner Media, which is a very big competitor for them in studio entertainment, as seen below. And then for studio entertainment report card below, as I just said, Warner Media is a close second at 3.55, but Disney is still in the lead at 4.35.
Okay.
Critical success factors of these. For the direct to consumer, this includes multiple medias. They're very competitive in this new industry. They have many trademarks and characters that they're able to use that competitors are not able to use, and they have quality content. As for studio entertainment, they have very creative content and creative writing, multiple platforms to which they can display all of these movies and TV shows, and they also have advanced technology over their competitors.
Okay, so some problems for Disney: continual revenue loss from COVID-19, government interference, potential monopoly, rapid increase of competitors in all industries, increase of competition for direct to consumer content, and severe losses from acquiring Hulu.
Maybe you could explain the losses from acquiring Hulu. I mean,
Yes, in 2018.
Folks are watching this, but they don't know what you mean.
No, of course. For 2018, Disney lost about $1 billion on Hulu. So that was a severe loss for Disney as a investment. And that is why they also compete against Hulu now with Disney Plus. So they're competing basically against themselves. So that's why they're thinking about that merger to put both Hulu's content and Disney Plus content on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Which would be smart, I think.
Up at the top, the continuous, not continually, but probably continuous. So that means to me over an extended period of time. Revenue lost from COVID-19. I guess we would need to look at the revenue chart, and the financials are coming, right? So,
Correct.
but when we get to when we get to the charts, we're going to see that there was a big loss of revenue. Can you just sort of set the stage for us?
I kind of want to save it because I have what the impacts of COVID did to Disney, as well as a chart for it showing the financials.
Okay. But we can assume that the parks, for instance, probably had more difficulty than Disney Plus, because
about a $10 billion loss from 2019 to 2020. I have a chart on it.
Yeah, and the folks would stay at home to watch Disney Plus.
Correct.
So that probably was an offset.
Huge. They had no idea that Disney Plus was going to be this big. They just thought they were going to just join that market. But because of the pandemic,
Right.
Disney Plus went crazy.
Right. So there were problems and opportunities both.
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, here are the opportunities.
Strong stake in direct to consumer industry, acquiring companies such as 21st Century Fox, expansions into foreign markets, and potentially create new parks in new countries in those new foreign markets.
Okay.
Here we're going to look at the financial analysis.
Blake, I get the idea that you're the financial guy on the team.
Yeah, numbers.
Okay.
So we're going to look at the revenue. So we're going to see a fairly steady increase from 2011 to 2017, but nothing too significant. And then in 2017 to 2019, we're going to see a sharp rise. And then in 2020, we see that decline that Mike was talking about, mostly due to the COVID pandemic. So the operating profit margin, if you look at the chart, I mean, it's slow and a gradual increase from 2011 to 2018. Once again, nothing significant, but just very steady. And then in 2018, you see a really sharp, it's kind of a scary looking graph. It's a sharp decline and since 2018. But with a lot of my research, I was finding that a lot of this is due to the heavy investment into getting this Disney Plus running and acquiring these programs such as Hulu. So that is a big reason for why this looks like this. So it's not truly what it really looks like. More of it's just a heavy investment to try to get a stake into this industry. And overall, it's a 15% decrease in the last 2 years from 2018 to 2020.
Nevertheless, this is really something. And of course, if you're talking about the capital invested in new businesses, that doesn't affect operating results. That affects the balance sheet with invested capital. But if people don't attend the parks, the fixed costs of those parks don't go away. At least not many of them do. But the revenue sure as hell does. And so the difference between the revenue and the costs really shrinks. And and again, the good news is that it could have been worse if it weren't for Disney Plus and the media. Another problem for Disney, of course, was I'm not sure what you call it, but the media, the movie businesses, because the attendance at theaters went down, and they had to shrink that business. And again, you've got a lot of the costs in Disney are not variable with volume; they're fixed. The costs of a theme park are there, whether anybody's riding the rides or not. And in the media industry, it's largely the same. So the result is this thing we're looking at, which is, frankly, I'm surprised it's not a lot lower. I'm surprised that it didn't go lower than 15%, and it may have in this year. We'll see what happens. But when you've got such high fixed costs and such a reduction in revenue, this is what happens.
Yeah, and this is just another chart kind of showing where they get most of their operating profit margin. And as we mentioned before, much of it comes from the United States and Canada and that North America region.
For sure. That's it? You don't want to say anything more about it?
Well, yeah, so if you look at, I mean, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Latin America, that's something that this company can really look into in terms of an opportunity moving forward. Like they're kind of very dependent on the US and the Americas, and that could be a little dangerous, especially with the way that, like, as I mentioned before, the dollar depreciating. So, I mean, they kind of want to expand their markets and diversify where they're doing business.
Well, when I look at the bar chart here on the left, I see the best results were in operating income were back in 2016, and that they've kind of declined since then. Whereas in Europe and Asia Pacific, things were still going well until the COVID hit, but there was a positive trend. So there's a little suggestion that there's some potential there. Nevertheless, if you're not doing well in North America, you're not doing well.
Yeah, so next we'll look at the return on investment and the return on equity. There's a gradual increase both up until 2018, and that's kind of been an ongoing trend here. And then there's a sharp decline once again in 2018. And this just shows that there was a decrease by over 10% in both return on equity and return on investment. So that's a pretty significant number for this company.
Boy, it sure is.
Then long-term debt. So fairly stagnant from 2011 to 2018, like not much going on there. And then the sharp increase from 2018 to 2020. And in fact, a 30 billion increase since 2018, which is once again is just a massive amount of cash there.
Well, we're starting at less than 20, right? Call it
Yeah.
18. And we go to 53?
Yeah, it's
So
roughly
what's
30
that?
billion.
35 billion on top of 18. So we took the 18, doubled it, and added it to the 18. So the debt increased threefold.
Yep.
Wow. Let me say it again. Wow. You know, why do you think this debt went up the way it did? This is meteoric.
I think it did because right around that 2018 time period is when they were really heavily investing to get this direct to consumer like up and running. And in fact, they launched in 2019. So I think a lot of that is coming from like all the resources and money and time that they're putting in to try to get this thing as effective as it can be.
Yeah. That plus offsetting those operating losses.
Correct.
So in order to continue operating, they've got to finance their operations. And then they're getting a little risky because on top of that, they're investing in these new businesses as well. So these guys certainly have a lot of courage.
So on shareholders equity, once again, fairly stagnant up until 2018. There was a slight rise in 2017, and that could have been a positive thing. And then there's a significant increase from 2018 to 2019. In fact, about 40 billion, which is incredible. So that is large in part due to sold stock, as you can see by the chart. And then it starts to come back down once a little bit in 2020.
Why does it come down?
What was that?
Why did it come down in 2020? I'm using this as a teaching moment for all those people who are asleep out there. Ladies and gentlemen, never forget that the way you increase net worth is from net earnings, after-tax profit. After-tax profit goes to retained earnings on the balance sheet, right? Okay, so if equity goes down, it goes down because of those losses. So Disney did what it had to do. It sold a bunch of stock, but now here we go again. This is a tough business.
And then total invested capital. Once again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the stagnant from 2011 to 2018, then the rapid increase of about 60 billion. And then it started to level off as of late.
Right.
And this is one of the most important things to look at financially. So not much change from 2011 to 2015, and then a pretty steady increase from 2015 to 2017, and then a big decline from 2017 to 2018, and then you can just see a major increase from there. And that's large in part due to all the things that we've discussed recently, as it's just all connected.
Yeah.
But as it's at about 40%, they really can't take as many risks as they have back in, say, 2011, 2012, when it was just above 20%.
Now, if normally, if you see a company with 38% leverage, you're impressed by the 38%, but you're not scared by it. What scares me is the trend and the way they got to 38% or 39. So given the trend and the amount of debt that they've taken and the steps that they've had to take to dilute equity, that is to say, the shareholders had a certain value per share before they sold all those shares. And suddenly the number of shares that equity was spread across was a lot larger. So the value per share went down. This is kind of rough on shareholders. And as leverage goes up, the risk incurred by those shareholders goes up as well. And if this trend continues, this leverage could get scary.
Yeah, and then just a couple of big takeaways. I've already mentioned this a lot, but it's been on the rise. The leverage has as of late, as you just saw. And then in 2018, total invested capital, long-term debt, equity, and leverage saw massive increases. And adversely, the return on equity, return on investment, and operating profit margin saw the massive decrease.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the capabilities.
Pardon me, let me take a quick note here. Okay. So who's going to talk? Michael?
I am. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, some strengths of Disney. As Billy mentioned, diversified product and service portfolio. That is huge to Disney, a huge asset to them, as well as from those large diversified portfolios, the large amount of cash flows. Disney attracts talented employees just because of how well known they are. They're a household name. They're making shifts to help the environment. I think this is really important that by like 2030, Disney has a pledge to go completely environmental in all aspects of their production stuff, to be 100% recyclable in all their products at their parks and any other products that they have. They own well-branded assets. And then they also have strong negotiation skills. And what I mean by that is acquiring all these major assets.
Okay. I complimented this team during our meeting on their graphics, on the quality of these slides. I've never seen a Mickey Mouse like this before. So you guys did a hell of a job with your graphics.
Well, I guess that one graphic didn't work top right. We're going to talk now about the weaknesses of Disney. Disney's distress from the ongoing pandemic and its uncertainty could be a problem for Disney, as well as the heavy dependency on North America, like Blake said. But what we should take out of this is how they have very few weaknesses.
That's for sure. Again, your graphics are.
I wish you could see the one on the top right. That was another funny one.
Oh, up here?
Yeah, but I guess it didn't work.
Oh, I thought you took it out because it was too graphic or something.
No, it was just Mickey Mouse holding donuts over his head.
Okay.
You go next slide.
Sorry, we missed it.
I am too. Opportunities for Disney. Disney Plus. I believe this is a huge opportunity for Disney. That pandemic helped them extremely in this media industry. The global expansion of Disney, I think, could be really important because of Disney Plus. There are 54.5 million subscribers worldwide they had in 2020. I think that's huge just in 1 year, getting that many subscribers. And that is all due to the pandemic helping them out. The possibility of building theme parks worldwide. As I mentioned earlier, there's only 6 places with Disney parks, and 2 of them are in the United States. So I think that's a market they could potentially hit. And apparently they're using Disney Plus to see where worldwide they're getting a lot of attention from. And yeah, just continuing to make smart, strategic buys like Fox, Marvel, Pixar, ESPN. I think that's just really important. Okay, the threats of Disney. Increased piracy can hurt Disney Plus. That means like illegally getting Disney's content online from illegal websites. That could really hurt them, because if you don't want to spend the $8, you just have to kind of put a little effort in to find those movies online and their content online. And I think that could possibly hurt Disney. The economic uncertainty with the ongoing pandemic. As we all know, this pandemic has been dragging, so we don't know when it's completely or if it ever going to end. So this could hurt Disney, because all it takes is another outbreak to kind of cause damage to them, even more damage than it already has. And they're vulnerable to their competitors. As Billy mentioned, they have so many competitors in so many different industries. So that could be huge. That could be a huge threat.
All right.
Okay, so here I'm going to talk about the COVID impacts on Disney. Disney cruises were ordered to stop in March 2020 and didn't set sail again until August of 2021. So that's like almost a year and a half of no cruises. So that's just a ship just sitting there. That's a complete loss of revenue. The pandemic delayed releases and productions on over 40 Disney movies and TV series. Like Dr. Roney said earlier, that really hurt them, like not being able to produce their films and stuff. But they did use Disney Plus instead of movie theaters to put out those movies, which again really helped their content. Their subscriber base on Disney Plus. Disney Plus launched in November 2019 and hit 50 million by April 2020 and 71 million by November 2020. They are currently at around 120 million users thanks to the pandemic. Important to note, during the pandemic, Disney in November 2020 decided to lay off nearly 32,000 employees, including, if you look above the point of 28,000 employees. So that was 2/3 of their part-time staff in September 2020. Now in November 2020, they laid off 32,000 employees. So that just shows how much the pandemic hurt them. The pandemic caused Disney to lose around 7.4 billion in annual sales, as well as the company lost 6.9 billion just due to their park closures in 2020.
Wow. Okay. And so it was theme parks where the hit hurt the most.
Correct. I don't know why my picture didn't work again on the next slide, but I have it pulled up here. I'm going to talk about it really quick just so you guys can understand. So Dr. Roney was talking about.
Do you want me to minimize this so you can show us what you're looking at?
I don't. I have the picture here. I mean, I don't know why it's not showing up. It talks about the losses from the pandemic. So I could just talk about it. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Well, when you get a chance, see if you can put what didn't come through here onto a slide
Okay.
of some sort.
Yeah, I could re-upload it. I just don't know why some of the pictures aren't working. I don't know.
Okay.
Parks. So they lost 10 billion in parks and experience and products. They gained 4 billion on their media networks. They lost 3 billion in studio entertainment, and they went up 8 billion in direct to consumer. And that's all because of I mean, based on their the financials and everything, Disney Plus. I think Disney Plus kind of was their saving grace for the pandemic.
Okay, so just now these are losses in 2020.
From 2019 to 2020, yes.
Okay.
I'm really annoyed because I know you would have liked this chart. It's actually aggravating me. That's not up there.
Okay, what's the first one?
Oh, so that was about 10 billion.
Which category?
This is for parks and experience.
And how much?
About 10 billion.
Okay. And the next one?
Media networks rose 4 billion.
And the next one?
Studio entertainment lost about 3 billion.
Okay.
And direct to consumer rose about 8 billion.
Okay.
So now, as you can visually see it now, so they lost 10 billion in parks, 3 billion in studio, and then they gained 4 billion in media and 8 billion in direct to consumer.
Direct to consumer is 8 billion?
Yes.
Okay. Did you say they gained in studio entertainment?
Yeah. No, so I don't want you to get confused by the losses. So media and direct to consumer, they gained 4 billion and then 8 billion. And then losses in parks and studio entertainment.
You're confusing me. Direct to consumer, what was the gain?
8 billion.
Okay, now was there another gain or is this a combination?
No, that was it. That was it. 8 billion. And then media
Okay.
gained 4 billion.
So then we've got we've got 17 billion of losses this way, right?
No, because the media gained 4 billion. Media gained 4 billion.
Oh,
They
the
didn't lose.
media was a gain. It was a.
Yes, yeah, and both media and direct to consumer have to do with Disney Plus
So direct to consumer plus media.
plus media, correct?
Okay,
Yeah, yes, and there's only 2 losses, and that was parks and studio. the
okay.
pandemic.
So this guy goes away. But it was a profit. And
Yes,
this
12.
this
So
was a
technically,
loss of 13 million.
yes,
Billion. So that 8 billion really did help.
yes. Well, yes. So that would technically be 14. That would be 12 billion here, because 8 plus 4 from the media. So that would be 12.
Oh, well, then that's what I was asking you. So
Yes,
direct to consumer is 8.
yes.
Okay, and the
then
media
media is
profit is 4.
Correct. I'm sorry, this is so confusing. I wish I just had the picture.
No. That's what I'm trying to do is save it here because it seems to be pretty important.
Yeah, I would
And
say so.
I think we can probably capture this until you get a chance to improve the slide. If anybody looks at it, they'll be able to appreciate it. So this is 4 billion.
Correct.
And so if I there's 12 billion. And up here, we have 13. So it pretty well cured the deficit, huh?
Yeah. Just
That's-
about.
I think, I'm sorry, everybody, for the time we've taken to do this.
I apologize too.
However, I think that this is pretty important. And I'm glad that Michael was able to take us through this. So hopefully this will stay in the file. And we'll be able to at least look at it when we're reviewing. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the resources, the operands and operands. So for the operands, you got studios, theme parks, IT systems, merchandise like toys, board games, distribution channel, and patents. For operands, you got management, animation capabilities, media talent, employee recruitment and training, ride design capabilities, and innovation skills.
What does it take to have a competitive advantage? Anybody? Tell them, Bria. What do we have to have for a competitive advantage?
You have to have a good pairing between the operand and the operant.
Right, they have to be, you have to have well-matched superior operants and operands. And so when we look at this slide, we ask ourselves, are these things well matched? And I think probably the answer is yes. By the way, what's the CR? That looks like
I think that was, I don't know why that's there either.
that was what?
I don't know why that's there.
Okay,
It seems like my slideshow isn't.
okay.
today.
All right, so goals, you can go to the next slide.
Okay,
We'll be looking at the financial outlook and objectives.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up with your slide numbers here.
So looking at the total revenue forecasted for the next 5 years, it's expected to rapidly increase until 2022, and then it's going to level off and then just show slight increase from 2022 to 2025. And that's mainly due to the just kind of getting back from the pandemic, getting people in movie theaters, back in the parks. So that's why it's going to be a drastic jump. And then it'll start to level out once, hopefully, things get back to normal. Yeah, it's same type of thing here with the operating profit margin. A massive jump from 2021 to 2022, about a 10% increase, actually more than that. And then more of a level off from 2022 to 2025, just slight increase. And overall, the profit margin expected to double in the next 5 years.
When we remember back to where operating profit dropped, I think the margin was around 35% when things started to drop. So what we've got is a return back to the normal over a period of time.
Return on equity and return on investment, very similar. Rapid increase at the beginning, and then slowly starting to level off a bit. And the return on investment is expected to go up by 6%, and the equity is expected to go up by 7% over the next 5 years. So this one was kind of interesting. The forecast had long-term debt at 50 million for every year going forward. And so I kind of thought that it could be a good thing or a bad thing, because sometimes low long-term debt leads to like little growth and limited growth. And companies usually need to invest capital and kind of raise long-term debt, at least in some way, to grow the business and open up more opportunities.
Yeah, so if we're looking at return on investment of 8%, and we're gonna, on the debt, we're gonna pay 4 or 5%. Disney's probably not a preferred credit. It probably doesn't deserve the prime rate. It's probably paying a little premium. So maybe 5%. They definitely do better than 5% with the anticipated 8%. But right now we're looking at about a 5% return on investment, right? And so if it costs us 5%, let's hope they can do better than that.
Yep.
Okay.
Next is the equity. And this one shows a pretty slow increase from 2021 to 2022. And then more of a rapid line up through 2022 to 2025. And overall, a pretty massive projected increase in equity of about 60 billion. So from 90 to just over 150.
And they're probably not going to be able to sell a lot more stock since they already did that. So
Yep.
this is almost entirely retained earnings, right?
Correct.
So they're going to
Hopefully.
generate $60 billion of net income. And that's after they're going to retain that much. And that's after they've paid dividends. So we're looking for quite an accumulation of wealth here.
Yeah, and then the invested capital shows almost the identical graph, a slow increase at the beginning, and then the rapid increase up through 2025, and pretty much the exact same increase of about 60 billion total, up to just over 200 billion in total invested. Oh,
Right.
I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, lastly is the leverage. There's a sharp decline in the next 5 years. Like, this is a pretty steep graph, and it's a good thing for the company, but it could also prove to be a bit of an issue. It's expected to drop by about 10% in the next 5 years, which is pretty significant. And it should be about 25% by 2025. However, the company might not want to go much lower than 25%, as I said before, because if you're not really putting much capital out and like investing in long-term growth, then it's going to be tough to sustain that growth and continue to get into other industries and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think once they're below 30%, life will be a lot more livable. What they've got to do is reverse that trend that's going on now.
Yep.
You know, stop it from going up and then bring it down.
And this is just some of the takeaways. I'm not sure why it says one every time, but so the financial outlook for the next 5 years is extremely strong in all aspects. Like it seems like they are going to turn everything around. And once the pandemic starts to slowly decline, then they're going to adversely impact in a positive manner. And then as I mentioned before, the leverage is declining, so they're able to take more strategic risks. But as I just mentioned, the company should try not to take their leverage much lower than the 25%. That could limit the growth. And they may want to expand the long-term debt to encourage the growth as well.
Okay.
And this kind of just puts it into a table to show the financial objectives and where they want to be. So in 2021 is obviously where they are right now. So the revenue is expected to go up by 21 million. The operating profit margin should go up by 18%. Return on investment up by 6%. Return on equity up by 7.5%. Long-term debt should actually be 0.
Huh,
And then
yeah.
the
That's right.
equity is going to change by plus 63 billion, as well as the total invested capital. And then the only one that goes down is the leverage by 11% in the next 5 years.
Yeah. If you get a chance to change this,
Yep.
that would be helpful.
Yeah, will do.
Okay. So, and the what's in the green bar here, I've explained to everybody during our meetings, but these are the strategic objectives, right? Or at least the financial rendering of the strategic objectives. In order to get the 21 billion of additional revenue, things have to be done. The marketing goals have to be met. In order to get the operating profit back up, you know, probably the scale economy and efficiencies and so forth, but there's a strategy required to get the profit margins back up and so forth. But all told, what's in the green column here, at least after we fix this this no change in long-term debt. These are financial renderings of the strategic objectives, and that's why a table like this can be very useful. And frankly, we find, I don't know whether it comes through to you guys, but what we're doing here is sort of a scale model of what companies do in their strategic planning. You're going through what companies' managers go through in strategic planning, and they're in a company's strategic plan. There's a table just like this one. Because, and I guarantee you, when the strategic plan reaches the board of directors, they're looking at this column right here, right? What are you going to do for me, management? You know, okay, and then they're going to look at 21 billion and say, all right, now tell me again, how are you going to get that 21 billion? Okay, and back off we go to strategy, right? Here, I'll show you how, right? Okay,
Yes.
Billy.
Now we'll talk about the strategy. Here's a strategic plan that was written by Bob Iger, the former CEO that still works there. We are strategically positioning our businesses for the future, creating a more effective global framework to serve consumers worldwide, increase growth, and maximize shareholder value. Now we'll talk a little bit about the Ansoff's matrix. So first up, we have market penetration. And one thing to keep in mind is that Disney has penetrated 4 different industries that we've been analyzing for the last few slides. And so we're going to harp on some of the strengths that they have. Disney markets to all consumer demographics, so there's a lot of penetration that can still be done, but they do market to all different demographics. They also developed a strong social media presence, which branches out into multiple various entertainment industries, such as media services, studio entertainment, and direct-to-consumer. Some of their examples of how they penetrate markets are advertisements, promotions, and commercials. And one thing to note is that Disney owns so many networks, such as ESPN and ABC, that they're able to advertise as much as they want on all of these platforms. Another thing is that, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, the last one was just that all media platforms are strong and influential to young minds, such as their Instagram and Facebook accounts. That's it. Product development. So they have a strong hold on mass media, entertainment, and merchandise toy industry. They've also recently entered the streaming service industry, which we've talked about multiple times with Disney Plus. And some of their newer products that they have are Disney Channel, National Geographic, Disney XD, and ESPN has been around for a while, but there's so many different subgroups of ESPN for different streaming services and games on different sports. And then example down here is a new product that they have at one of their, at the Shanghai Disneyland location. And it's just a very next level, new revolutionary ride that includes virtual reality.
Wow. Looks like those people are excited.
Diversification. This is something we really think Disney has a good goal in mind for strengthening their company. Disney thrives in the cartoon theme park, streaming service, and mass media industry. Disney has also created a new cartoon studio in Los Angeles, which can help them diversify their products even more because now they have more capital invested into creating new trademarks and characters. Another thing is Disney also uses cartoons and characters trademarked by Disney in their theme parks. So using stuff that they have trademarked that no one else can use, they can bring in more customers to their theme parks and physical locations. Disney is also developing a big role in the TV show and TV drama industry. They're creating new shows, and with their new acquiring of Star Wars and Lucasfilm, they're able to make many Star Wars as well as Marvel TV shows.
Okay. When you're reviewing this, give some thought to that third bullet. It's existing cartoon characters. I'm not sure that's diversification because there's nothing new there.
Yes, sir.
Give some thought to that.
Yeah, one thing that I was trying to say by that is in the second bullet point, how it says they've created a new cartoon studio. They're able to use
they're able to use the products from that studio.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and they're, because they have more, they have a budget increase to creating these new characters, they're able to use those in their physical locations.
Gotcha.
Market development. Disney is now entering the direct-to-consumer industry, which we've mentioned before. So this gives a lot of consumers easier access to their movies and TV shows that they're creating. They're also entering foreign markets such as Europe and Japan slowly but steadily.
Is Disney getting its fair share of Japan? I'm sorry, Canada. Darn it, China and India. Is it getting good shares of China and India?
We're about to talk about India in a couple slides, but as per China, it is very much lower because they only have one physical Disneyland location there. But that's one thing we've talked about is that if they're able to have locations there. Disney's best interest, this is just a small conclusion from the Ansoff's matrix. Disney must concentrate on differentiation strategy to increase the gap between competitors. They also should branch off into new markets, such as the virtual reality, as that Tron Legacy ride that we showed in Shanghai, and to accelerate growth in direct consumer industry by strengthening their apps and their streaming service, such as Hulu Plus and the merger with Hulu that we've talked about.
Okay, so like Bill just mentioned, virtual reality, as we all know, it's exciting, it's new, like the technology's new, it brings things to life. So virtual reality and theme parks are rising in consumers' desires and a major trend in physical locations of entertainment. It enhances the theme parks because the consumers want it. Potential market because of COVID-19 restrictions in the aftermath, like you can use virtual reality, like you don't have to be right next to somebody. So like in the pandemic, this is something that could could help. A lot of rides at Disney have it, like the Harry Potter world. There's some rides that have virtual reality of you flying on the stick and stuff. So, I mean, virtual reality it could be the next big thing. I mean, it is already doing well at Disney, and it just excites their consumer base.
Okay.
Diversifying media content. Disney should have a priority on direct and consumer products, as we can see, like with Disney Plus. I feel like we mentioned Disney Plus this entire presentation because that's how important it is right now. There should be a complete priority on direct to consumer products. Aim to increase budget on Disney Plus content quality to surpass Netflix, Hulu, and HBO Max. Well, instead of surpassing Hulu, that if they do that merger, I think that would be huge for them to increase their profits. And then also having new content creation to diversify while using previously acquired franchises such as Star Wars. That could be a huge potential for them as well.
Okay.
Now to talk a little bit about Disney in India. Disney's expansion into India's market should be deemed a priority while it's still slim at the moment. It's very big, low market, like there's low market penetration in India. And India also has continually growing GDP. So it's a growing economy, which Disney can easily enter. And it's estimated that India's population will surpass that of China by 2027, which is now seen as possibly 2026. So this is the huge market that Disney can still penetrate.
And apparently people in India like to go to the movies for some reason, but it's a
Yeah.
popular thing to do.
Yeah, that's on our next slide. India possesses the highest rate of movie theater attendance. So in 2019, there was over 1.5 billion movie admission tickets sold in 2019. And in 2020, there was not as much because of COVID-19, but there still is over 1 billion. Bollywood cinema is valued at $2.83 billion and projected to increase to $4 billion within the next few years. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that Disney can still get its chunk out of. It's a very big untapped potential for Disney, and there's many strategic acquisitions and joint ventures that can happen.
That's it, right?
Yep.
Wow. Very thorough. And we held on to more of our audience too, so that's good too. That's a good presentation. Aside from all the good things that we've mentioned, and there were several good things, I complimented the folks earlier, and I'll do it again. Don't you? The rest of you think the graphics in this presentation were just dramatic? They were great. Very colorful and bright and everything. I mean, if you don't have content, pretty pictures won't, all by themselves won't do it, but it sure helps to keep your attention and make it easier to follow along with the show. So thanks for giving us a good show. It is late already. It's just past 3:30, but that's not as bad as we've done in the past. So thank you all for sticking around. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks to the Disney team for giving us a real good show and doing a really good job. I hope you'll have a chance to make those few minor corrections because they'll make a big difference. And you've got a lot of stuff in there that frankly I can draw on for the exam. So might as well take advantage of your good stuff. The good part for the teams, when they do a good job in their presentation, is they make it easier for me to draw material from their presentations onto the exam. So if you do a lousy job on the presentation, I can't use as much of your material in the exam. So if somebody does a great job on their presentation, then the chances are when they see the exam, they're going to end up being more familiar with the material on the exam than they would have if they hadn't done a good job. So give that some thought. All right. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm going to let you go. And thank you very much for hanging around. Yes, Michael.
So when is the Tesla due? Because you just posted the questions yesterday and the due date was like
test one. You've already done test one?
No, Tesla.
Tesla.
Yeah. That
I
question.
think somebody else asked me about that too. The Tesla questions intentionally are not difficult. You're not going to have any difficulty at all answering them quickly. They don't require real long papers, and you'll be able to step through them pretty quickly. I put November 27, which is the end of this week, and today's Tuesday, so that's not, backbreaking, even though Thanksgiving is Thursday. If somebody's traveling on vacation and just needs another day or two, I'll be glad to give it to you, but honestly, you don't need it. These are not, though there are 2 questions there, but they are not nearly as demanding as the questions on Ford were. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And I guess, Jacob, are you going to hang around or do you want to start another meeting?
Yeah, I was about to ask, could we meet in like 25 minutes? Because I texted you that I need to go to the office quickly and the office closes at 4. So I would just schedule a meeting with you in half an hour, I guess, if possible.
Okay, everybody can go. Goodbye. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Jacob, so do you want to set something up at 4 p.m.?
Yes, or if I just have one thing that I have to point out to you, and if we're able to do it in 3-4 minutes, we can do it right now.
Okay.
I just have to
Hold
tell
it.
you
Let me end the recording.
All right.
This is nobody else's business.